Hello and welcome to the Anomaly Project, the show that looks at all aspects of the paranormal and anomalous world. I'm Marcus Lowth, and joining me as he does every week is Steve Mera. Now, Steve's going to be a fascinating show tonight. Some Native American paranormal talk, a little bit of spiritual balance. It's going to be
Yep.
fascinating. How you
Oh,
doing?
I'm really looking for it because I already know what you're in for.
Yeah.
Absolutely fascinating, and of course, it's nice to get a different viewpoint, isn't it, from other areas around the world? Because we deal with these such things as very differently, but equally as important. Which I think not many people understand. The certain practices that are carried out in regarding this particular topic that we're going to be covering tonight, and it's quite refreshing,
Mhm.
because people learn a lot of different things, just as I did when I first talked with Dorinda about her work. So yes, I'm sure you'll be in for quite a treat.
Oh, I don't doubt that. So, joining us tonight is a researcher, investigator, and psychic medium, DURINDA Stewart. So, first of all, Dorinda, thanks ever so much for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh no, the
It's
pleasure is
great to
absolutely
be
all
here.
ours. But we've got a lot to get through. But I think probably the best place to start is, if my research is correct, you do a lot in the world of Native American paranormal, goings on, legends, folklore. So I wonder
Yes.
if you could tell me, how did you get involved in paranormal research and investigating in the first place? Was it an experience or just an interest? And what specifically drew you towards the Native American side of things, which I find quite fascinating, actually.
Well, first of all, being Native American, this stuff is talked about all the time. This is not, it's not
Mhm.
paranormal, it's normal. So Bigfoot and the Star People and abductions and all this stuff, those are legends that have been talked about and around the native fire for a long, long time. So that's basically how that I got into that. But the interesting part is that I met my husband Joe, which I was a ghost hunter. He was a ghost hunter, but then we got into the demon end of it, which is kind of interesting too. But I had to use some of my Native American cultural things to help get myself through that, because who wants to do that, really? You know what I mean? So yeah, so it's very interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, have you found any crossover between the Native American paranormals? And I'll keep saying paranormal, but I totally agree
that's
with
okay.
your point.
It's all right.
But yeah, did you find any crossover with how do I word this? More traditional, if you like, paranormal goings on and research and the Native American side of things? Are there connections there?
Well, there is a lot, but one of the things you have to realize is, being Native American, they don't usually talk about things with non-natives. Okay,
Right.
so these things were secret for a really, really long time, because those it's sacred in the world of Native Americans, is that these things are sacred. Even, abductions and Bigfoot and all this stuff is very sacred. Even ghosts, because ghosts are something that we talk about all the time. It has to do with our ancestors. So that our ancestors talk to us all the time. So that's one of the things that we do all the time. So it is a little different, somewhat. But Bigfoot, is so funny because I I had an encounter with my husband, which is interesting because when I was younger, we talked about Bigfoot, the hairy man, the man of the woods, the red man. They called him several different names in whatever tribe that you're in. But it was always like the boogeyman, so to speak. So you kind of kept away from him. Okay, so then I meet this guy who says, "Let's go into the woods and see this, huge thing, and this, 1,200-pound thing, and let's just see if we can, have some contact with it." And I'm like, "Oh, sure, why not?" So I did, I did get my first encounter with him. So that was very interesting because he showed me how to look for it. Where in the Native American culture, they say stay away from it. So that was really interesting. So.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, why is it, do you think, that they say stay away from it, Dorinda? I mean,
Well,
are they fearful of it? they're fearful. And you know, there's different legends that go on. One of the things that you'll know about Native Americans is that they're very superstitious. Okay, so they have a lot of superstitions, and just like anything, like the bear and all these different things. I mean, if you attack a bear, it's going to attack you. But if you respect the bear, that's what happens. So that's the thing, is because this Bigfoot is so huge and it's sacred, because in Native American culture it walks between two worlds. So they say that it walks between two worlds. So it's very sacred. So it's almost like a religion that you have to be respectful of it. But when I was with my research with Joe, I mean, it was very fascinating things with it as well, because, when you see something like that and you go, it really does exist,
Mm.
it's kind of, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
awe-inspiring. And when I first saw it, it looked, because they call it the wild man and they call it the man of the woods, the hairy man. And when you first look at this, in this particular time that I saw it, it was peeping through the trees. It's like they're tree peepers, they like
Mm.
this. And when we locked eyes, it was like I was looking at a human, but it wasn't. He was a ape-like
Yeah.
hairy thing that was pretty tall. So it's like scary but really exciting at the same time. So
Can
Can
I just
imagine.
ask you about that? Because you just kind of led me into something I wanted to ask you when you mentioned Bigfoot. You mentioned locking eyes with them, and I've read reports from other researchers who have said they've done the same thing, and they've seen absolute intelligence there, like emotion.
yes, exactly.
Is that
Yes.
how
And
you
that's the
found?
thing. Yes, and that's the thing, because really, because people poo-poo it away. They're like, if Bigfoot is around, we would find it, we would do this. Well, if they're that intelligent and they walk between two worlds, which that's not the scientific version of it. That's my spiritual version of it. You're not going to see it because they're very curious about people.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of stories that people say, there's some people that are kind of, I guess the word is kind of like wackadoo, where say that they sat around the fire and had, conversations with the Bigfoot. They brought their children around and all this stuff. I don't believe in that. I think they keep their distance. I think they're
Yeah.
just like an animal. They're an ape like. I think they're kind of it's kind of hard to even say ape like because of the intelligence that you see, but it really reminded me of apes because I've been in the woods before where I've heard, that whoo, 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 and
Oh,
I'm
yes.
not in
Yeah.
the jungles. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So it's like, where is that coming from? So
Right.
Mm. I mean,
ape
and
like.
there is old references, isn't there? Old stories of the Native Americans and Bigfoot and
Yes,
talking about maybe trading with them. And, they respected each other, but they were
right.
certainly aware of these. I mean, this goes back a very, very long time, when the Western world ended up, coming to the Americas and talking with Native Americans and finding out the stories about these. And they believed they were real and possibly
Mhm.
even traded with them on some occasions.
Yes. Well, they have the gifting thing. I don't know if you guys have ever, there's like a little gifting thing that you do. When Joe and I we've done research up north and stuff, and we've done gifting and that kind of stuff. I mean, it's like, you give them they kind of like Mountain Dew and they kind of like chocolate. Okay. So they like things that you can't get in the garden, but then they'll give us like a big grasshopper or a slug, so that's their gifting of us. And
Right.
we've even had a stone that was kind of carved that was really beautiful and stuff.
Wow.
So I mean, there's kind of some intelligence there because we've had conversations where we wonder if if they know what gold is or all these different things. And then the next thing you know, in the gifting thing there's like a little piece of gold or something like that. So they do
Yeah.
have intelligence that way too. I mean, it's like if it's somebody else in that woods doing that, there. I mean, it's crazy because it's like we're in the middle of nowhere.
Mm.
Trust me, I know that we're in the middle of nowhere. There's no toilets or anything there where we are.
Yeah.
And then to have these things show up, it has to be real.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
in the Native
definitely.
American aspect, the things that my elders had talked about was that they used to do what they called Indian games with the Bigfoot. And then supposedly, one of the Bigfoot accidentally killed someone. So this is what they told. This is the folklore that they were saying. And because they're so powerful, they decided to stay away from man. But also remember, white man always wants to do something different. They
Yeah.
always want to put them in a museum or capture them or slaughter them. So they understand that whole thing too. So they kind of migrate like Native Americans do. So the question is, who was first? Did the Native Americans do that, or did the
Yeah.
Bigfoot teach the Native Americans how to do that? So
Good
that's
point.
the
Yeah.
thing.
It
Yeah,
could be.
It is an
yeah.
interesting point. I mean, there's a couple of questions I want to quickly ask you here on this, particularly from the Native American side. I was speaking to a chap the other day. Now, he's not Native American, but he
Mhm.
was saying that some Native American legends speak of these Bigfoot creatures arriving here, and they describe it as arriving on a moon. And some people have
Mhm.
interpreted that to be a disc, like a UFO, which I'll get to in a mo.
Mhm.
I kind of wonder if that's some kind of portal. You mentioned about going in between worlds, and some
Right.
researchers have indeed suggested, and I think they're correct, that Bigfoot is flesh and blood when it's here, but then it does manage to somehow get to another realm. So it's kind of
Mhm.
supernatural and real at the same time.
Right.
So, what are your thoughts on that? And have you seen any connections between Bigfoot and UFOs from the Native American perspective?
So my husband will kill me on this because he's a scientific he's a scientific thing,
Yeah.
and but there's been talk that they have come from other worlds. Okay, so I have never seen this, but some people have claimed that when they're in the woods with the Native Americans, they do see the orbs of light as well. So I personally have never seen that, but I have been around the Bigfoot where they're there. So I mean, why not? I mean, it's like, Native Americans believe that we came from the sky people. That's
Yes.
we have our creation stories. I mean, there's several different tribes that have different creation stories, and most of them start from the sky. So, and then there's the petroglyphs that have, the spaceships and the
Mm,
Bigfoots and, saying that they came from the sky. So I've never personally seen anything like that, but I wouldn't be surprised
mm,
if they
no.
are connected to that.
I
Yeah.
do think science is slowly catching up
I know.
in regarding the metaphysical aspects of these cryptids. And
Right.
there's starting to be quite a considerable amount of evidence and work being pushed forward in trying to understand how these things, when you say walk between two worlds, the scientific side of that is to say it has metaphysical aspects. It can be
Right.
physical and non-physical. I mean, there are footprints that seemingly just disappeared, aren't, isn't they? And you think to
Right.
yourself, well, where did they go?
Right. And they kind of can cover their tracks. So let me just tell you a little story. We were up north and up in the UP of Michigan, it's kind of shaped like this.
Mm,
UP of Michigan up here is very desolate. All right. So we were on the highway and there was this brown, like black lump on the side of the road, and we drove by it. And I said to my husband, I said, that doesn't seem like it should be there, so let's turn around and go back. And it was gone. So it's like, did they hunker down? Because they've been known, like Native Americans say that they can hunker down and, you
yeah,
know, um,
yeah,
and
yeah.
hide and all these things. So one of the things that we've been learning to do when you're Bigfoot hunting is not to look like this, eye level, look up and look down because they're hiding. So
Wow.
That's a
they're
good
they're
point. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
interesting
they're
stuff. I
masters
mean,
of hiding.
yeah.
from
Good.
the Native American perspective, I mean, and we'll probably go on to spirituality shortly, but I mean, would you say that Native Americans, perhaps through their belief system, perhaps through just how the cultural side of it, are they more spiritually in tune with these Bigfoot creatures? And likewise with them? Yeah, again, I was speaking to a chap and he was saying Bigfoot creatures, because they're seen around UFOs, are perhaps spiritually in tune with that aspect. So, do you think that's of importance, this spiritual connection, if you
Yeah,
like?
it's very spiritual. I mean, that's the thing, is that they are telepathic. I mean, when we walk in the woods, I've had times where I go, we're not alone. And, then you hear the different, they mimic owls, they mimic all kinds of things. And they have this thing that's like whoop, whoop,
Yes.
so they do
Oops.
that too. There's a whoop that they do. And when you hear that, you're like, oh my gosh. And then there was a time where we heard um there were coyotes howling, right? So there's a bunch of coyotes howling, and then all of a sudden we heard this angrily, and it sounded like Klingon, from Star
Oh
Trek. It
yes.
sounded like that, and then it wait, and I went, "What did we just hear?" I mean, that was, because those coyotes shut right up and didn't,
Well, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, do you think that they actually have their own language, Dorinda? Do you think that they do have intelligence?
Um, I've never heard it. I mean, just the whoops and that particular, but I mean, that particular thing was definitely a
Mm.
language because I heard it like from TV. And so then you
Yes.
think to yourself, how do these people that did Star Trek or whatever, where do they get that idea to get that,
Well, yeah,
So,
that's a
yeah, so,
good
you
point.
kind of, yeah. But I
Yeah.
mean, they communicate definitely through telepathically. Yes.
I was just
Yeah.
going to say that's a kind of language in itself, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
people imagine it as words in your mind, but it's more. I'm not telepathic, but I would imagine it's more
right.
images and just the feeling of knowing and stuff like that. So in that sense, they perhaps do have their own language. I mean, just broadening out to Native American legends and paranormal and otherworldly, goings on. Do you think? How do I word this? Do you think people on this side, for want of a better phrase, do you think we could? Well, we certainly could learn a lot more from Native American legends. And do you think it's important that we kind of we kind of do listen more to these stories, and in turn that Native Americans perhaps would share them? Because I feel that in doing so, we might understand the paranormal world a bit more. And as you say, it's not necessarily paranormal; it's normal that we just don't understand, basically. So,
Right. Right.
what are your thoughts
Yeah,
on that?
I think they're coming around, but there's a lot of sorry.
No
Um,
problem.
I think they're coming around to that kind of thing, but it's really important that we keep our traditions. That's really, really important in the Native American culture. And some things have changed up where they're not keeping that tradition. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's no problem. No, I mean, I think I completely agree. I think everyone, I mean, because,
It is interesting, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
we are talking pretty much not just an American phenomenon here. We seem to be talking about something that might be international. Um, and of course, there's different, you get different stories in different regions.
Hmm.
Some people have said that they've heard them chatter in like a chattering sound. Some people have said that during a winter and heavy snowfall, there was one peering into their bedroom in their bedroom window. So it was obviously quite very tall. But they followed the footprints and you could see clearly across the backyard in a foot of snow, these very large prints, maybe about a good 5 feet distance between foot to foot, and then stop. It's just like
Hmm.
it disappeared, you know. People do report that maybe did they have a mechanism to cloak themselves? Some people have referred to as hearing them very, very close, but can't see them, as if maybe they're invisible sometimes. So there's so many different stories of these things all around the world with different names because you've got the
Yeah.
Sasquatch, the Bigfoot, and all the other names throughout the Middle East and Asia and places like
I
that.
think
But
what's
it's the same
interesting,
thing.
the interesting there though, Steve, just to broaden it back out again, is that when you look at the Americas, North and South, a lot of those tribes, hundreds, thousands of years ago, essentially they're not recognizing borders as such there. And then when you look at the Alaska and Russia connection and the
Mm,
strait there, which was
yeah,
easily crossed at the land bridge, then so you've got kind of like one, not a global society, but then this is kind of explains why you've got Bigfoot reports all over the continent. But I mean, just going back to you, Dorinda, about the Native American, legends and whether we could learn more from them. I mean, have you noticed? I certainly think there has been, but you'll know better than me, an interest in Native American culture and legends, perhaps speared on by an interest in the paranormal. Because as you say, there's a lot of, when the what's the word? When the pilgrims came over, they kind of wiped a lot of that stuff away, much like the Spanish did in the South, which is just now lost, but it's still kept with, orally. So do you think there is more of an interest in learning this stuff?
Yeah, there should be a lot more of an interest, but the problem is that recognized tribes. So federally recognized tribes, there's about 500, but in reality, there's 18,000 or 1,800 tribes, and that includes Canada as well. Okay, but those federally recognized tribes, those are the ones that people, kind of think that everyone should look like, everyone should have the same story, that kind of thing. So each tribe will have their own version of the Bigfoot, and they call them different names and all these different things. But again, remember, it used to be something that they were frightened of. So it's all about respect, the respect of the land, the respect of all the spiritual stuff.
mm,
So there's a lot of people out there who want to like hunt Bigfoot or try to get a trophy or whatever. And it's interesting how you know if they would just allow them to be them, they would come around and they would learn so much from them, because they do play little games with you, and they do play
Mm.
little things with you, but again, they keep their distance, and it's better, it's a good thing to keep their distance, because
Is the Bigfoot thought as in Native American history considered on the same lines as a skinwalker, or are they completely considered to be two different things completely?
well, they're different completely, but I mean, there have been the Algonquins, which is kind of a British native rule. They thought of them as Wendigos and things like that, but they're not. See, they
Mm.
want them to be sort of like an evil kind of thing, and trust me, I mean, they can do damage, and they are curious. So looking through a window, I would think that they would do that,
Mm.
because they're curious, because they are curious about mankind. They want to know what's going on, but they keep their distance with them. And usually, I want to say this: usually, the ones that look through the windows, or that people kind of encounter, are the younger ones, younger, and the females. The males don't usually
Yeah.
want to hang around with you. They're
Mm.
very protective of the group. And then people think, they used to think, because of that the group Magruder film, that there was only
Yeah.
one. No, they're in every state, and they're in Europe too.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh
they're everywhere,
yes.
I mean,
and they're
definitely. I mean,
different.
there's an increasing amount of reports in the United Kingdom
Yeah.
of Bigfoot. So so what are your thoughts on that? Because we spoke about this walking between two worlds. So are we saying that Bigfoot are living here, or are they just appearing here? Depending, because obviously, if they go to another realm, they're no longer on our realm. I mean, what's the what? How would you say that?
Well, okay, so in my belief, I think they go to other realms, but I mean, maybe they don't. I don't know,
No,
but
I
I
think so.
believe that, because these huge things, but um they're very good at hiding. They know nature. They know their area. They can hide. And that's the thing, is like, if it wasn't for me seeing this movement with this tree, I would never have seen it. You
Mm.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not something that you see. I mean, Joe and I have been together 10 years, and we've been doing this. And I think I've seen three in my whole 10 years that we've been doing this, you know?
So they are obviously elusive. I mean,
And it's at a distance. I mean, we're not talking, right next to me. It's at a distance,
Mm.
and then it's one of those things where you go, did I just see that? Was that what I saw?
oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I know
Just,
that.
I mean, I'm sure there's certain locations where Bigfoot are more prevalent. Like you said, I know they're all over the place. But I mean, there's a new study this week where there were, Washington State, California, the Hudson Valley, all these where there's big clusters of them. But as well as Bigfoot, I mean, I know there've been many Native American locations, for example, that are what's the word here? I'll say paranormal, but they'll be sacred, but there'll be like anomalous activity to science, for example, taking place there. So, can you speak to me about some of those locations? Because I think locations are important in general to the paranormal.
Mhm.
Well, the big thing is that big water, a bunch of water. Okay, so there's water. Michigan has the Great Lakes. They're like inland seas. You can't see across them,
Yeah.
but where there's water. Okay, and there's another thing where there's apex predators. So where bear hunt and things like that, you will find Bigfoot there too. Okay.
Mm.
So like lions and, cougars and all that stuff. So it has to, I mean, think about this, just like a Native American, if you have your tribe, you need food, you need water to
Mhm.
get where you're going to go. And I believe that they migrate. I believe they have winter homes and they have summer homes,
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
and then when things happen, like, forestry, when they're cutting down woods and stuff, then they move to somewhere else. But again, they don't desecrate the land. They move to where, they take their part, and then they move to the next thing. They don't, make
Mm.
it so that it's barren. So that's just like what the natives did. They moved and migrated where there was
Fascinating.
water and things like that. So,
Yeah.
and then even where there's people, because they do like people too. But I mean, you're not going to see a Bigfoot in New York City, but you're going to see it in, upper state in New York.
Yeah.
But just like even with the aliens and all this stuff, you know, um, Whitley Strieber, he was up in his cabin when he was encountered or abducted. So there's like all these different things that, it's remote
Mm.
areas that they want, because they want to be hidden. So they're masters of hide and seek. They want to be hidden. They don't want people to know that they're there
Hmm. Do you have
because
any
there's people who do want to kill them.
do you have any Michigan dogman incidents? Do
Now,
you get those reported?
I've never had that, but Dogman is another native thing that they talk about. Dogman as well,
Oh,
and
right.
again, it's a thing that they're scared of. But Michigan has been known for the Dogman,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and there has been some encounters of the Dogman too. See, I told Joe that I'm not interested in Dogman, so we're not going to do that. But he's done it in the past with Dogman,
I mean,
and that's one of his things that he'll do.
can I
Yeah.
ask
Pardon?
you about that then, about the dog man and more specifically Bigfoot, but both? What are your thoughts on why the government's got such an interest in Bigfoot creatures? Because you can see why they'd have an interest in UFOs. But I mean, why Bigfoot? Well, not that they're necessarily trying to cover it up, but they're kind of very dismissive of it. While at the same time,
Right.
you've got notices saying Bigfoot territory. I know a few researchers suggested that it could simply impact the economy because if it was discovered, it would be a protected species and things like that. I mean,
Right,
what are
right,
your thoughts
right.
on
And
that? Is it?
what are their protective rights as a Bigfoot?
Yes.
Let's forget about if they exist, they're here. So what are their rights? So
Right.
that's the thing that people might not
Exactly.
want to learn about. But the government's secretive about everything. So as a Native American, we don't talk about the government. We don't believe anything that they say. So
Yeah.
it's like the government's going to make a promise and they're not going to keep it. So but that's the thing is that I know because research, my husband has been had some hair that we thought might have been Bigfoot, and we sent it off. Well, as you know, Steve, we sent it off to
Yes.
Cambridge, and we still, I mean, this has been a couple years now, we still haven't gotten anything, and Joe keeps
No.
asking him about that. And then they recently had a college here in Michigan where they were going to take some DNA of the waters of where they thought maybe Bigfoot would be here. And that's been a few months. And you would think that people would be excited about this and just
Yeah.
find out. And really, we just want to know yes or no and then go on. But for some reason, the bureaucracy keeps it from happening. So I'm not
It's
sure
such a
what that is
shame, that.
about.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does seem to happen like that, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
Mm.
Does it do
Yeah.
any of the paranormal phenomena tie in with Bigfoot incidents or sightings
Well,
of Bigfoot?
yeah, like I said, the lights. But like I said, I've never seen it. Um, I've never seen the lights
Mm.
with Bigfoot. I've seen the lights other than the Bigfoot when we've gone out looking for UFOs and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's no scientific proof, but I believe that is probably related because again, they walk between two worlds. So what does that mean exactly? Does
Yeah,
that mean, they go away?
I only asked because there's been a number of researchers, not so many, but just a small number of them that have been and got casts of the Bigfoot
Yeah, the feet.
casts.
Mhm. Yeah.
And they brought them home, and as soon as they brought them home, they started to have a few unusual disturbances at their
Mm,
homes. And I thought it was quite unusual that they actually think that it's tied to them bringing these casts into the home. And that's what their thought was, is that it's just suddenly things started happening as soon as we brought these casts
right.
and things home.
So we have several casts. We have several things at our house. We have a handprint from our car that looks different, and that's going to be in Joe's book, the handprint. So he had a Bigfoot hit his car, and it left a handprint.
Ah, yes.
And so I don't think that there's something there, but I mean, Steve, I deal with ghosts, I deal with demons, I deal with all this stuff. So
I
maybe
know.
he's
Yeah.
here, and I don't even know. But I
Yeah.
mean, I think it might be because there's superstitions and then there's people, they bring them in and then their minds kind of go crazy about it because it is kind of a mystical creature, this Bigfoot. So why would you not think that there might be some kind of paranormal thing with it?
Mm.
But I mean, I think they're all paranormal and all that stuff because Bigfoot, the sky people, all that stuff is all related.
It seems to be all connected somehow.
Yeah,
I mean, I was
yeah.
talking with somebody about a month or two ago who were having dogman experiences over there, and
Mhm.
they were very remote. And a large handprint, which looked not quite human, was on the
Mhm.
car. And just so you brought it
Yeah,
to
see,
mind when you
yeah. So
mentioned
they do
it.
touch stuff. Yeah.
Well, so they she tried to wipe this mark off, and she took some photographs, tried to wipe. She couldn't wipe it off. So she actually, and it was a relatively new truck. So she
Uh-huh.
asked someone to have a look at it, and then he got a friend who's a like a car sprayer professional, and comes out and he
Uh-huh.
had a look at it, and he said, "Do you know, it's so weird. No matter what I've applied to this, it will not remove the mark." And he said, it's as if the molecular, the paint in that molecular had been molecularly altered somehow where that
Right.
handprint had touched. They could never get rid of it, so they ended up having to spray over it.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That's
It was a gift that
interesting.
kept on giving, right?
I mean
Yeah.
that leads me nicely actually into the next thing because I mean first of all there's been a case of an alien like that as well. I forget the guy, the
There has,
researcher and a piece
yes.
of glass. I think it was Daryl Sims.
Mm.
But the spirituality we mentioned that, and I believe can you talk to us a little bit about spiritual balance? Because again, if my research is correct, a lot of these paranormal happenings and manifestations of what we might call demons, whatever they might be, it's down to a spiritual imbalance. Is that like a collective imbalance, or a personal imbalance, or a bit of both? What tell us about that, Dorinda, please?
So when you're talking about demons and ghosts and those kind of things, there is a psychological part to that as well. Okay, so there's a psychological, and then there's the factual,
Mm.
and then there's other things that go on. So we always try to respect these people, because when they come to us, their stories are very you know uh kind of very, you're like, are you sure this is really happening? And
Yeah,
then you have to be really respectful.
yeah,
But what we do is that we always look at them, and we always talk to them in a way that says, you and your family have gone through a lot. You might want to go see someone afterwards and stuff for this whole demon or ghost thing. But some people are very it's a psychological thing. So what we've discovered is that um, people who have uh, mental illness of
mm,
some sort have a tendency to be open to more paranormal or demonic or things like that happen. So it doesn't mean that the demons or the ghosts cause the mental illness. It's just that they're more open to that because of the fragment things that are
yeah,
going on in their brain.
mm,
So, and then, with Native Americans, they're not, they don't believe in counselors or any of that stuff. We have our
no,
elders, and they talk to us about these things. So everything, it has a meaning of some sort. So everything, is believable, and that it has a meaning to it. So, you just have to be very careful with people. And, when you're with them, you got to make sure that they're not someone that could break, as far as, um, they need to see
yeah,
someone, some counseling or whatever. So, mental illness is very predominant, especially in our world right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so people like to have an excuse for behaving badly. And sometimes that's what they use, is the paranormal or whatever. Because, if you're a paranormal investigator, you know what's true and what isn't. You understand what you've heard and what's coming up. And, you go into a paranormal uh, 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 case, skeptical, because you think
yeah.
there's got to be other reasons
Mm.
for this happening. And then when we can't find what those reasons are, then you have what's
Well,
left.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
sure is the only plausible approach after you've done all
Right.
that, isn't it, really?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
do Native Americans then, if they are aware and are experiencing what they might refer to as evil spirits, do
Oh
they
yeah.
do they pray to another something, a deity or something to help protect them?
Hmm.
Or I'm just wondering what that process would be.
Sure. Well, in the Native American culture, we have what we call the medicine wheel. So the medicine wheel
Yeah.
has the animals and all the different directions and things like that. So the eagle is the biggest thing, and the
Mm,
eagle is the one that is the closest to creator
yeah.
God, or creator. So there's a lot of Native Americans, because of the Catholic rule, when the Catholics came in, and they were trying to keep them. They wanted them to become Catholic instead of paganists. They thought what they were doing was pagan. Um, so they have the creator God. So what Native Americans believe is that the eagle has on its wings carries your prayers to the creator, and then the creator sends the messages to
Yes.
earth on that. So we have the animal world, the animal kingdom. Nature is always the biggest church that we
Mm,
have in Native
mm,
American folklore.
I just
right.
ask you about, you mentioned the eagle there. I mean, and again, it's probably a little bit about shamanic practices, but we were speaking to a researcher from the UK, Debbie Cartwright, and she was speaking about shamanic practices of many tribes around the world. And obviously, that did involve hallucinogens, but it also involved intense chanting and just a way of getting into another state of consciousness. But she specifically mentioned the eagle, and she was saying that what these shamans used it for was almost as a migration aid. So whether they could literally see what the eagle was seeing, or whether they were in tune and following its movements, and so wherever the eagle migrated to, they followed suit because that's where there was going to be plenty of food, water, etc. So, have you come across this before? That kind of practice?
Yeah, I mean, again, each tribe does things differently. But remember, in the shamanic world, there's Peruvian, and then there's Native American. So like the Peruvians have eagle in there, but they have like the jaguar and different things. Where we have the buffalo, the
Mm,
wolf. So there's like different things that go on with that. So in shamanism, there is an underworld, and there is an underworld in Native American culture as well. So, but the underworld is not demonic, so to speak. It's lessons that you need to learn, and I think that's what they do in the shamanic thing too. I'm not a Peruvian shaman, so I don't really know that whole thing. I know the Native American things, but you do need to go into the underworld and face certain things to help with your life here on Earth. So there are those different things that you can use to go into the underworld. But
fascinating.
again, it's not
Yeah.
evil; it's a lesson.
Well, yes,
So
I
that's
mean,
the thing.
I know you've encountered all the levels, really, from people to reaching out for assistance with paranormal phenomena. Um, what's been the most significant thing that you've experienced regarding paranormality, regarding people who are having problems?
Well, the things that we've seen some things, you
Oh,
know,
yes, I can imagine.
they're in the phenomenon magazines. We've seen some things.
Yes.
The most recent thing was like this totem. I don't know if you're familiar with the totem story, but there's this place up north, and my husband all of a sudden wanted this car. It was a carving. The place up there had like these carvings, and my husband wanted this. Really, it was hideous. It was a hideous thing, and he came to me, and I go, "We're not taking that home. We're not taking that home." And then when we were driving home, he kept thinking about this whole thing. And it's like there was some kind of, spirit in the
Mm,
wood that was trying to get to my husband. I said, we're not taking that thing home. So it was there's some weird things, but we believe in the trees. There's tree spirits, there's plant spirits, in Native American, everything has a soul, so to speak, in Native American culture. I mean, we can sit with plants and it will tell you if it's poisonous or if it can use for medicine, because medicine is really important in Native American culture, is the medicine.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of different things that come in, but it's like, we the things that happen with Joe and I are seem normal, which would be kind of crazy for other people, I think. I'm this
Yeah.
grandmother that goes out and hunts demons. I mean, what the
Yeah.
heck? But I mean, I try not to, because I have my spiritual belief, my native beliefs, and then I protect myself for all these things. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that are out there, and there's a lot of evil in the world that's going to try to, change you up. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things that we talk about is demons will whisper in your ear and say, "I'm your
Yeah. Yeah.
friend.
Yeah.
These people are
Oh,
not your
yes.
friend."
Yes.
So
Can I just
Yeah.
quickly
they
jump
might
in
not be.
because you mentioned about medicine and plants? I know this is a different culture, around at Peru, but the ayahuasca stuff. I was reading about this, and it's firmly believed and spoken of that they arrived on this combination. It's not just picking one plant either; it's a combination of and how you treat it.
Right.
They arrived at this by being told, they say, by the plants
Yes.
themselves.
Right.
So is
Right.
that kind of thing that again you find in the Native American tribes in the
Yes,
north?
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly. When you sit with a plant or you sit with anything, even a rock will tell you. We call in Native American culture it's called grandma stones. And stones have a lot of wisdom to them because they've been in the earth for a long, long time.
it's
So, I mean, just like when you go to an old building, I mean, you guys
Mm.
over there, you guys have some really old buildings over
Oh,
there,
yes, yes, we do.
and so
Yes.
you can put your hand on there and you get some information that, it'll tell you what's going on with what's
That
happened throughout
that
the
that actually
lifetime of
happened
that
to me
building.
at Stonehenge. To be fair, you put your
Yes,
hand there and you can literally feel something.
yeah, yeah,
But I mean, I won't go into that. But the consciousness side of things. I mean, you mentioned about shamans, the underworld and visiting realms. There's a big drive at the minute about consciousness and how important that plays into experiencing the paranormal. So,
mhm,
do you think that they're opening their consciousness and consciousness is, traveling to the other realms rather than them physically, even though it's still real? And,
right,
do you think that you mentioned mental illness? Obviously, a mental illness, it can in various ways distort the electrical signals in the brain, much
right.
like alcohol, much like any drug. And so, again, I don't want you to nail anything on the post here, but do you feel that if paranormal activity is electromagnetic in nature, at least partly, do you think that could be why people maybe with mental illness or people who have struggled with alcohol do experience this stuff a little bit more?
Right. Right. I do. But the big question here is, what is consciousness, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah, oh,
that's the
yeah.
big question. That's the thing that people for, millennia have been trying to figure out what consciousness is. So even like souls and all that stuff. But I think, there is, I believe that, the consciousness is within the
Mm.
stuff that we have that's around us
It's
and our
everywhere. Yeah.
intuitive. Yeah. And the thing is that our brains, we don't use our brains as well as we should.
Yeah.
So there's different
Mm.
parts because I'm a hypnotherapist. So I have to try to get into the subconscious of the brain to find people's angst that they're trying to find,
Mm.
solutions to. And it's incredible some of the things that come out of their subconscious mind. And you're like, where did that, come from? And
Mm. What about tulpas and things like that? Can they be? Do you think that these things can be created? I mean,
oh,
we
absolutely.
we know that some scientists did some work in Ontario, Canada, with the Philip experiment, created a ghost which interacted with them. It was totally manufactured by the people
Right.
present, but they were trying to demonstrate that the physicality of tulpas and that they can be created. Are you aware of that within the culture?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Um, we have things like that too, because remember our ancestors. Okay,
Mm.
so the ghosts are our ancestors. So they wouldn't call it a topola, but it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
We have the different, native our ancestors like, I'm trying to think some different I'm like drawing a blank now. It's like, oh my gosh. Sorry, others.
No problem.
Like Sitting Bull and things like
Oh,
that.
yes, yes.
People, elders will sit in a fire, have a fire ceremony to bring the spirit of Sitting Bull to come and tell them what they need to do next. So there's those kinds of things
Right,
that happen that go on. So
right.
that's just one of many things that you can do to do that. But they don't call it a topola. It's an elder. But really, when you think about it, it is kind of a topola kind of
Yeah, just
situation. You're
different
bringing it in.
different names, I suppose, and
Yes,
associations,
right,
depending on
exactly.
where you're from and what your beliefs are and what they call these things. I
Right.
mean, I think
And
it's
what tribe
it's
you're from
global.
and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I
I
mean,
believe
God,
it's global.
we're speaking about tulpas there and consciousness and things of that nature. Do you feel that do you feel that there's that this consciousness is spreading a little bit wider? People seem to be more aware of this type of stuff now, for example, and even have more of an interest. And do you think that collective interest in itself will kind of progress us a little bit more into finding out why people are experiencing this kind of thing, really?
Right, right. Yeah, I think so too. But again, some things are trends. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like sometimes we get things that we're all trend into, new age stuff, and then all of a sudden we don't care about new age stuff anymore. And then go into these trends. Like Bigfoot is really big right now.
Mm.
And we didn't talk about that, 20 years ago, really. We didn't talk about Bigfoot, but now we're talking a lot about it. I mean, they even had commercials, with
Yeah.
Bigfoot is,
Oh, do they?
yeah,
Oh
they have
yeah.
commercials here.
They've got a
Yeah,
pizza
there's a
released with Bigfoot, haven't they? And Aldi, like a Sasquatch pizza I was reading the other day.
Yeah,
It
and then
does show
really,
us.
yeah,
Bigfoot, the name Bigfoot came from, those people in California. It really wasn't, it's, Sasquatch is like all these different
yeah.
names, but yeah, it's just a popular thing right now. So I don't know.
What about the fact that you're on about elders speaking to spirits and basically ancestors, who once lived? You also mentioned though that entities, energies, whatever you want to call them, can manifest, can basically trick those who are speaking to them.
Right.
So how, obviously that's not on all occasions except that. So it does
Right.
happen sometimes, but how often is that? Is that like a rarity or does that happen a lot? And also off the back of that, how do you know? How do you protect oneself from being tricked?
Right. Well, you do have to protect yourself whenever you're open yourself up, especially because I'm psychic. So, when you open yourself up, I always have what I call a sunroof, and I close it off because I
Yeah.
always tell people when they first open up to spirit world, you can go into a grocery store and it'll drive you nuts because people are, dead people are talking to you all the time. I said, when you close it off, the important things will come through. So that's really important that they do that. But it's like when you're open, so open, when you're open to spirit like that, you don't know what kind of spirit you're bringing in
Mm.
because there is evil out there as well. So you have to
Yes.
be, discerning about what you're bringing into. We've had clients that say, we can't get rid of this demonic stuff, and they're sitting there going, I have the blood of Jesus to come into me. And you're like, okay, so you're asking for the blood of Jesus, but what's really coming into you? You know what I
Well,
mean?
that's right. We're not too
You see,
sure.
so it's like,
Yeah.
because, evil has several disguises and they can come in several ways. So it's like, you can't, you got to be very discerning, only the good, the light, only things that are good for us and helpful and,
Mm.
spirit that will help for us, not evil.
Are there
Evil's
are
not.
they are there certain items that you can use which have high protection?
Yeah,
Yeah.
crystals and things like that. But again, it's what you believe.
Mm.
So it's a really
So
you
you
it's
so you empower them through your belief then, yes?
right, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Can I
So
just,
crystals and
oh,
things like that, you empower
Yeah.
them with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
are we speaking about individual evil spirits or are we speaking about a collective evil? Because you can kind of boil this down. And again, I don't want to be oversimplistic, but it's like the age old tale of good versus evil. Or are we literally talking of individual spirits here, who, like the jinn, for example, who act on their own incentive and for their own purposes? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, if you talk to people about the jinn, some religions believe that the jinn is okay, but
Yes.
I personally think, demon is a demon is a demon. You know what I mean? So it's like it's evil is evil is evil. And so you just have to be really careful because it's out there in our ethers. Everything is there. It's like we
Mm.
have spirit. I mean, again, consciousness, whatever that is, there's good, excuse me, good and evil everywhere.
Mm.
So you just have to be really careful. It's all about intent. What is your intention when you bring something into you or to do something with it? Because if you intend
Mm.
evil, then evil's going to come and show up. But if you intend good, it's going to be good. So that's what I believe. I
Yeah.
mean, it seems very simplistic too, but it
No,
really is that,
kind
if
of
what's your
reson
intention?
it resonates with the as above, so below. Not exactly. I know it's not what that means,
Yeah,
but it's a kind of
exactly. Yes,
similar
yes.
sort of
Yeah.
thinking there. Just, I don't want to bring Bigfoot back too much, but you mentioned intention there. Generally speaking, Bigfoot encounters, we don't hear any violence. They don't really attack. I know there's rock throwing and things like that. However,
Hmm.
when people take weapons, hunters, for example, that's when
Right.
you seem to have some kind of reaction. So, are they picking up on, do they just recognize a gun
Yeah.
physically, or are they picking up on intention?
So, you know, Marcus, you go into the woods and you have a gun, and then somebody's holding a gun at you or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
kill or be killed sort of thing. That's sort of like what it is in the natural world as well.
Yes, it is.
Because
Yeah.
bear encounters. One of the things that we talk about is that you make a lot of noise, so the bear will go away. Because you don't want to scare the bear, so you go, "I'm here, bear. I'm here." If you hear a bear running around or whatever, so it's like chances are they're not going to come after you because they're not going to feel threatened. But
Mm.
if something is threatened, it's the same thing. And really, you're going to threaten a Bigfoot. I mean, this 1,200-pound
No,
big
no,
hairy
not
ape thing.
advisable.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't do it. But I mean, it's like, but I think it knows your intentions as well. So Native Americans always have a really good uh, uh, connection with Bigfoot. For some reason, when you have a Native American with you, the Bigfoot show up, which is really kind of cool, in a
Oh,
really cool way. But
right.
again, it's all about your intentions. And it's like one of the things that we do when we Bigfoot hunt is that we're in an open field. The woods are surrounding us. They can see us. We can't see them, but they can see us.
Mm.
And the rock throwing and all that stuff is like they have precise rock. I mean, I've never been hit by a rock, but it's a warning. Like there's probably babies there or something there, and to get out of there. And you just do it. You just go and do it. So you just have to be respectful. It's all about respect when you go out and do these things. But if you've ever gone into a Bigfoot environment, so there's signs in nature that are pretty awesome. They have like these pointers and stuff like that. So they have like these X's
Oh,
sometimes.
yes. Yes.
One time we were up north and there was this pointer and it was, this point, there's like a log and it was pointing. And I said to Joe, I said, that's pointing up there. And then there was an X there. And I go, up on that hill, there's going to be something. So we walk up there on this hill and it was pretty treacherous. Again, I'm a grandmother. I got my little poles trying to get up this hill.
Yeah.
Come on, let me see. And then it was like a condominium for a Bigfoot. It had like all these different Bigfoot stuff in there. It's like, wow, it's really cool. So you got to pay attention to nature, and nature will tell you what's going on as well.
Yeah.
So
I also heard that there's people that have seen looks like trees that are upside down.
yes, trees upside down is incredible.
You see
Yes,
a
yeah.
huge amount
That's
of
not very
strength to do
often, but
that.
they do have the trees upside down. And then they have these logs that are super high up that the tree has been pulled out and then set up there
Mm.
to, like
Mm.
almost like a
Oh,
pathway to go
it's
into
incredible,
down.
that, isn't it?
It
Yeah, it's a
certainly
very,
shows
very
the
cool thing.
strength. Yeah, definitely. Can I ask you a quick question, Dorinda? You mentioned there about if you go out with a Native American person into the woods, the chances are you're going to experience a Bigfoot and perhaps other things, I don't know. Um, I don't want this question to come across the wrong way, actually, but could a non-Native American person, if he was to be, uh, you know, spend time with a tribe, and could they learn these things and could they become in tune
Yeah,
to all this
yeah,
stuff if they
yeah,
wish to?
yeah. So Native American doesn't necessarily mean you have Native American blood. It means that you
Right.
think the way that natives think. And
Okay.
that's the thing with nature and all that stuff. Because there's a lot of people that are white who have been adopted by tribes and been told the ways. And that's the thing. That's an honor that a person would get. The elders trust you because they want things to go on. Because remember, Native Americans is not a written language; it's a spoken language,
Yeah.
and it's starting to get writing now, which is great. But I mean, it's like every story has a meaning to it, but you
Mm.
have to figure out what the meaning is because they talk in similes and different. You're like, okay, what does this mean? The water runs upward. So what does that mean exactly? So it's like you have to sit there and try to figure it out. And you can't
Mm.
question the elders either because they're like they don't like that either. But you have to sit there and go, oh, okay. And so then eventually you'll figure it out. And that's the lesson that they're trying to teach you is to
Think for yourself.
learn how to
Yes.
find it yourself. So yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I really like that because a lot of the time in UFO circles, conspiracy circles, certainly, it can get really divisive, for no real reason. And so the fact that we've got Native American culture and their view of the world can actually bring people together, not just, in a paranormal
right,
sense. It's something that I'd be interested. I'd really like that to happen. I really would like that kind of crossover and for non-Native Americans to take that on. I mean, I really find that incredibly enticing, to be honest with you, doing that.
right. It's about trust, because it's like there's so many things that have gone on, and this is the thing is that the way the world is now with Native Americans. I mean, it's been recent, really.
Mm.
So in 1978, which is like 47 years ago,
Mm.
in the Navajo Nation, women who had a baby would have it in their clinics, and then they would get sterilized without their permission.
Oh,
So that
so
was a rule that they had. So that was 1978. So the
yeah.
70s is still things that the atrocities that were happening with tribal women and tribal people. And even now, with reservations, women and children are being kidnapped and stolen and killed and
Yes,
murdered.
I've
And,
heard about
and
that. Yes.
because they're native, is not as serious, to everybody
Yeah,
else.
and it doesn't
I mean,
also, I'd have to say that it doesn't seem to be as much employment by police efforts in
yeah,
regarding missing Native Americans. I mean, I've looked
right,
the whole thing and looked into that, and I was quite concerned that the fact that if it was a non-Native American, all hell would
right,
break loose, and that is
right.
seriously, it's not, there's something not quite right. Justice there, is there really?
Right. Right, we were just talking about that because we had a woman this woman, her newscaster daughter, she's been kidnapped and has been in the news. And we're just talking
Oh,
about this, and we're like, why? Why? I mean, why do we care about this
yeah,
when
yeah,
there's so many other atrocities that have been happening,
Yeah,
especially in the native tribes and different things. But
yeah,
the reservation, that's the thing, is that the reservation are massive sometimes, and people of criminal, you know,
yes.
ideologies hide out there in the native in reservations.
They do. They
So
should not.
it's
There should not be that divide, really.
right,
I mean, I think that it could still happen working with Native American police forces, equally, because I know they want to have, these crimes
sure,
solved, but they don't seem to
right,
get the support that they need,
right,
which is a shame. And considering we're in the 21st century now,
right.
it's just ridiculous to hear things like that, isn't
Mhm.
it, really?
it'd be interesting to
Yeah,
see whether the study of the paranormal could kind of, and I'm not trying to, belittle that
Yeah.
because it's obviously important, but it'd be interesting to see if the co-study of the paranormal can bring this together because, as Steve says, it is really just mind blowing that that's still going on. I mean, did you see that happening, Durin? Did you see it? We've spoken about there's an interest in Native American culture, and it seems to be growing, and certainly from paranormal, spiritual people. Do you think that we'll get to a stage where this culture will be both more outlooking and trusting, even though we certainly can't blame them if they weren't, and that people will
right.
be in turn more accepting and want to, like you say, just get involved with this stuff with from this point of view. Do you think we'll see that in our lifetime?
Well, it would be wonderful if it would
Yeah.
happen. I mean, really. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure we're ready yet. I'm not sure because there's a lot of distrust in the native people, and yeah, there's because the language is dying. There's a lot of languages that are, like the code talkers and things like that are dying off. And so it's like, but there's even things that are happening within the reservations that are kind of not great either. Like people are kicking other natives out because they're not part of that tribe because they want the housing or whatever for them. So this is the thing is that when you get a government who pays for things, you
Mm,
know,
yeah.
it's not great
Mm,
sometimes. You know what I mean? So if you're on your own and you're doing your own skills and all this stuff, but when you have a government paying your way, you have to go by the rules of that government, and that's what they want. It's very, very restrictive because even the blood quantum of Native people, because if a black person has one drop of black blood, they're considered African American or black. But if a Native American, because of the blood quantum, if they could be 1/16th, 1/18th, they're not considered Native people anymore. They're not considered tribal because when you're tribal, you can get monies and all that stuff. And I'm just going to let you guys know that I am not tribal, so I don't
yeah.
have any money, which is fine because I can live my life
Yeah,
the way that I
for
want
sure. Absolutely.
and not have to follow the
Yeah.
rules of that.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think that the interest is certainly growing. I mean, I mean, people do not realize because, they live sheltered lives, people. They don't understand about the Native American societies, the way they live and their lifestyle and things. It's not through ignorance, it's just the fact that they don't know. And,
right,
this information is not shared. Most of the
right,
times it's suppressed. We
right,
don't get to hear things like this, and why? Because, like I say, if it was anybody else, we would be hearing about it. So, yes, there's
right.
definitely a divide there. But I mean, we do have sort of certain things, people doing lectures, some people doing TV shows, which brings us a bit more of awareness about the paranormal and the supernatural aspect in regarding Native Americans and police force as well, because we got the paranormal rangers, or should we
Yes,
say the Navajo Rangers. I'm a good friend of
right,
Joe, good friend of with Joe, and he is. He's retired now, but it's
right.
incredible what the Navajo Rangers were doing. And now, of course, I'm quite because I became really good friends with them. I started to learn things from them,
Yes,
and it's just incredible. And then I thought to myself, wow, we take this as this is a real investigation. It's an important investigation.
right,
They take it as, well, it's just another Monday.
right.
And I was
Exactly,
like,
exactly.
what? And he said,
Right.
yeah, it's just normal. And now we have shows like Dark Winds, which is, I
Yeah,
love
Dark
that.
Winds
I
is
absolutely love
wonderful.
that
Yeah,
show,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it sort of throws in the paranormal and supernatural aspect with the police force. And I love all that
Right,
sort of thing. It
right,
enlightens people.
Yeah, I mean,
right. And they
legally,
still have their traditions, so that's
Yeah.
good.
You leave me nicely there, actually. Speaking about, like the modern world and everything, well, there's a lot more equipment out now doing it. I'm sure you're aware of this digital equipment. We're just speaking
Yeah.
about electromagnetic energies and how important that is. So, with the rollout of all manner of devices, and that doesn't look like it's going to slow down anytime soon.
Right.
Obviously, that's going to help people understand more, capture EVPs, etc., etc. Do you think
Mhm.
it would? How do I phrase this? Do you think it might offer an explanation to some of the Native American, events of the other realm?
Mm.
Because we'll be able to actually see it scientifically, and then that'll almost so that it can prove to us that this is real. They're not just stories and not just legends.
Right.
What are your thoughts on
Right.
that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, stones and things like that have energy in them. We all know that. So, in a Native American culture, I would believe that they would use more of their spirit than this particular thing. Now, Joe and I have used those things. We have,
Okay.
but there's a knowing
Mm.
that you
Yes.
just know because there's different. You have to like. Where's the electrical outlet that's coming? There's all these different things. Remember, you're skeptical when you go into these things, and you got to find out what's happening because all these different things that we have in our modern world in our houses and that kind of stuff. So, but I'm a big believer of using
Yeah.
your soul, your
You're
brain.
you're the best piece of equipment. We are.
Right. That's the
Absolutely.
thing, until I die, that's what I'm going to use probably.
I mean,
Yeah.
And
that
so,
That
You know,
phrase you used there, knowing, I mean, that's interesting. I was speaking to a paranormal researcher a few weeks ago, and they're very scientifically based, almost to the point of being skeptical, which is nothing wrong with being skeptical, but I find they tend to be lean a little bit that way. And I was talking to them about basically an energy, a little boy that I've seen in my house, essentially. And we
mhm,
we're going back and forth, just chatting. And it came back down to the fact that, yeah, I've no evidence of this. I just know.
right.
I just know what this little boy is and why he's here. And I said, I
Hmm.
know that, that's not good enough for you. So that's like a big
Right.
sticking point, isn't it? Because as you say, if you just know, you do just know. And there's no,
Right.
so how do we, even if we can, how do we get over that sticking point? Could we create a device that could register just knowing? I don't think we can. But I mean, how it is a big stumbling block, isn't it, between science and experience?
Exactly. That's true. There is. And, and we do need some of the scientific things. But this is the thing is that particular entities may not just show up for anyone but you.
Hmm?
You see what I'm saying? That's what the
exactly.
Native American people talk about
Yes.
is that you are the beacon that they want to communicate with.
Yeah,
So,
interpersonal encounters. I mean, yeah,
yes,
it's absolutely right. And although that we've been pressed to use more science in those sort of things, but the phenomena doesn't play like that.
right. It doesn't.
And I think there's actually areas of it that is just not meant to be investigated,
Right.
because we might keep throwing science at it and we don't get anywhere with it, or it
Hmm.
shifts or it evolves or it learns its intelligence. So I mean, it's not just like a science thing where it's fixed and you can go and
Right.
re-examine it over and over again, because, like I say, it's intelligence you're dealing with, so they can
Right.
act differently, they can evade, they
Oh,
can
yeah.
do all
Right.
sorts of
And then
different things.
quantum physics that helps get us a little bit closer to you know, the veil of that kind of
Yeah,
stuff too. So, there's a quote that says science will progress one death at a time. When one
Yeah.
scientist dies,
that's very true.
Yeah. I mean,
science,
science does need to kind of catch
I
up.
think I
Yeah,
think because we're mind, body, and spirit. We're all three of these things. We're mind, body, and spirit. So even with disease and all this other stuff, it's all those three.
yeah.
So how can you sit there and just say that this is an absolute? I don't think there's any absolutes in paranormal. I don't. How
There
can there
isn't.
be?
No, I don't think
Yeah,
No.
so, because it changes, it variates.
it flows. There's flow. That's the thing. Like when it being a psychic, and you talk about people, psychics are not 100%, but because it flows, it's like at this moment, this is what's happening, but it can change. It can because things flow. So
I mean,
Yeah,
that's
that's
why I
true.
think it's important to have a mixture of scientists and what's the word, non-academics, for want of a better word there.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
as you say, I mean, I go back to this all the time. You'll never stop human curiosity. People
right.
want to know, and because the phenomena, whatever you want to call it, evolves, then obviously we have to evolve with it. I mean, it's I just don't think I just don't think we'll reach a point where people will just say, I don't want to know that. I just do not see that
Right.
coming. Curiosity is what drives us. Essentially,
Sure.
it's what made human beings is to be curious. If we weren't curious, we never would have left the sea. So I think we have to
True.
evolve in order to actually investigate this stuff. I mean, before we let you go, and I really bless you, I know you've really struggled, with your throat, so I
I
I know.
appreciate it.
know. Oh,
So I'm not going
bless.
to drag
I've
this
Yeah.
out.
eating cough drops all the time.
Nah,
Sorry.
no, I appreciate that so much. But so I won't drag this out. But where do you see paranormal research going in the immediate future, in the next coming years? Because we've got UFO people, paranormal people, they're all kind of starting to come together almost. And do you think that's a good thing? Do you think that will happen? What's your thoughts on that, Dorinda?
Well, I think that it should all be one. I think that you have experiencers and science, I think, together and respect on both things because there's the question, the stuff that's questionable and the stuff that you can't explain, but together you can come up with a good idea of what's happening, and that kind of thing. So I think experiencers and science is important that we learn both, because if you experience something, again, the universe tells us, there's universal laws. The universe tells us that, again,
Mm.
you're experiencing something. So if you get like, have you ever had like three psychics in an investigation? They all come up with something different.
Different, yes. But
Yeah. So how is that?
they could all be right though. That's
It
so
could
it's
all be right,
interesting. Yeah.
but that's the thing is that how does that happen? So how is this person going in with this? And that
Mm.
person's seeing something else, and so
It's
that's
all
an
different
interesting
for
thing.
each. It's separate for each one.
Yes,
It's like
exactly. Each
divination. I mean,
experience
they
has
all
an
use
experience.
different forms of divination as well. I mean, there's so
Right.
many different ways of getting the source of information, but that form of
Hmm.
divination, and there's hundreds of different methods now, isn't there?
Yes, yes, there is. But again, it's like, let's say there's three entities in this room. So the one person talks to the old man, the other person talks to the old woman, and then the other person talks to the child.
Yeah,
How is that? But there
I
are three
know.
entities there. See, so that's the
Exactly.
thing. You can't explain that whole thing, so
Yeah. Well, I know, Dorinda, you've wrote a fascinating book, quite a unique book as well, and we could tell us a little bit about that and let people know where they can
but
obtain it from.
I have the book.
There it is.
Native American Spiritual Realms. I wrote this book. Basically it's about my experiences with different Native American tribes and the things that they talked to me about, Bigfoot and uh, skinwalkers and different things. Because again, there's several different tribes and
Mm,
they have several different stories. So that's what this book is about. It is about the paranormal. Because I'm a paranormal investigator, and I thought, why don't I just put my native
it's a great
touch in this
idea. Yeah,
to
it's quite
to see
unique.
what this is about? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what it is about. It's like the stories, the ghosts that I've encountered, the ghosts that other people have encountered, the different things that they've encountered. Um, I mean, there's all kind of little people, and I mean, there's like all kinds of different things that are out there. Like Dogman and Bigfoot and you
Mm.
know
It,
Deer
it,
Man, and there's like all
yeah,
these.
there's quite a lot, isn't there?
There is, there is.
Where do you get hold of the book? Is it available on Amazon
It's on
or?
Amazon.
Yeah,
It's on Amazon. So there's three different ways you can get it. You can get it as an ebook, or you can get it as a soft cover or a hardcover. So
amazing.
Definitely get hold of that. I'll be getting hold of that
Yeah.
myself. I mean, just to quickly, you mentioned little people there, and I know
I
people,
know.
say fairies and don't exist. However, I was talking to another researcher, Paul Seaburn, the other day about this. He was telling me about a story of Chinese mushroom that's not really available outside of China, and the people that consume this, every single one of them, they see little people or little figures. It's not
mhm.
subjective like you would expect. So is that something? Because I was saying, if that's true, then what that suggests is those people aren't hallucinating. They've actually, their consciousness at least has been taken into another realm, or
Right.
their vision has opened up to see. So, is there an equivalent in Native American culture of things like that? Because I
Um,
found that fascinating.
well, like the things that we see, the little people and stuff, it is all a hallucination.
Right.
Okay, because again, we're not everyone sees it, but there is a hallucination even with the demonic. Like one time I was in a house and there was a deer head, and the deer head actually turned and looked at me and
Oh,
went away, and I'm like,
oh no.
and Joe was sitting there, and he goes, I saw it too, and I'm
Oh
like, that was
no.
a hallucination. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it didn't really happen, but we saw that happen. So that's the thing that people have to understand
Yes.
when people say that they see these things in their mind, they saw it.
Well, it's
Okay,
real to
so,
you. Yes,
so
that's
it was
right.
real. I mean, I was able to know that. I'm like, okay, that didn't really happen, but it did. You know what I mean? We saw it. So that's the thing about so many things, is that there is a part of our mind that sees things, the third eye or whatever, whatever you're into, that woo woo
Yes,
stuff.
they mess about with
Sometimes
it,
our
don't
third eye will show us some things. So
they? Yeah, I'm curious, Dorinda. Do Native American people have spirit guides? And if they do, are they all Native American spirit guides?
not always, but yeah, I mean, we all have spirit guides, and we have
Yes.
several. So there's several spirit guides, and I would say, so this is just totally my thought. I would say everyone has at least one Native American spirit guide. At
Mm.
least everyone. I mean, even you guys from Europe, I think would have at
Yes.
least
Well,
one.
we do get reports of Native
Yeah,
American
I would
spirit
think,
guides.
I think that there's a conscious, maybe, of people that help,
Yes.
because we have different, because there's different cultures and different things. And if we're here if we're a spiritual person having a human experience, we were going to need some help from the other realms to help get us through this experience, I would say. So that is, there's no science to that. I'm just saying that I believe that.
Yes.
So
It's
Yes.
interesting, though, isn't it, that you mention that, because, again, I don't want to put too much weight in this, but Jim Morrison from The Doors. Now, I know people can say
Yeah.
his brain was addled and blah, blah, blah. He was undoubtedly a very talented young man. However, he repeatedly came back to this, didn't he? He had a spirit guide, and it was a North American spirit, and this was through childhood, all the way through his life. He did a lot of Native American dances on stage where they're authentic, but he was certainly trying. So, again, it makes me think, could the guy have been telling the truth? Could he really have been
yeah,
in touch? Because if we're saying certain drugs do open consciousness up, it
well,
Yeah.
doesn't
I
sound
know,
as
like
crazy.
ayahuasca and the mushrooms, all that stuff. I mean, when you go and have an experience like that, the ayahuasca and the mushrooms and all that stuff, people, they have a good experience when they are led by the person that's giving them the stuff. It's like their intentions and all that stuff. There are times when people don't have great
It's
experiences with it.
misguided virgins. Yeah.
Right,
Mm.
right. But there's a lot of beliefs in that. I mean, it's like even in Native American culture, the tobacco and all this stuff. I mean, it's kinnick and pot. I'm sure there was some pot in there. I don't know. I don't know, but
Probably.
I'm sure there's
Possibly
pot in there
so.
too. But again, the plant will tell you how to open up your consciousness, and that's
Yeah.
what they use. But remember, they did it as it was very medicine spiritual. So it was like ceremonial. It wasn't recreational. Things were
Mm.
not meant to have recreational. Like tobacco and things like that are not meant to have every day. It's supposed to be ceremonial. So
Yes.
that's why you run into the other problems with that. So
That's right. I mean, we were talking about the peace pipe and things that they used to
Mhm,
use.
yeah,
They sit down and have this, but it wasn't a regular thing. Everybody's peace piping all over the place now, aren't they?
It's humans
yeah.
for you,
Yeah.
in
Well,
it, to
see, the
do
thing
things
is
to
that you got
excess.
to
Yeah.
in Native American culture, there's a pipe holder, a pipe person, a person who has the pipe.
Oh, is there? Right.
And that's the thing. So it's like if you have, someone that, is, made a pipe or whatever, but it's an honor to be a pipe holder. And
Ah,
they're the ones that have to lead and you go around the
yeah.
room and
It's very ceremonial. Yeah, it's
yeah.
Interesting
fascinating, isn't
stuff.
it?
Look, Dorinda, we'll cut this. We'll cut this there. I think, because, as I say, we've put you through an hour and 15 of really putting your throat through it. So I
Intensive.
Guys,
appreciate you. Appreciate it.
I
But
just woke up
before
with
we
this.
let you
I'm like,
go,
not today.
exactly, I know you messaged me to say, so I appreciate. Before you go, though, what have we got coming up? What's going on in the Stewart's world? Any more books, lectures, planned?
Yes,
Floor shows.
I wrote a new book called Natural Ways to Reduce Stress and Anxiety, and so that's on Amazon
Ah,
too. And this is a practical guide to everyday calm, because I do demon hunts and all this other stuff, so I do need something for my
oh, that's
anxiety.
good. What's the picture on
Yeah,
the front? Is it hand marks? What is that?
it's like violets and
Oh,
butterflies and
sorry, right. All I could see was
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Right, I
And
see.
it's a journal. There's a journal in there too, so you can write stuff in there, and it's kind of sarcastic,
Oh, I like that.
like me. So yeah, because you know how we were our fight or flight mode was to help us with saber-toothed tigers and stuff, but
Yes,
of
it
course there's
was.
no saber-toothed tigers out there now. So now, our body doesn't know what to do. So I always, say, thank your body, say there's no tigers here. I'm going to be okay, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
why I wrote that.
Well,
So
at least we haven't lost that, have we? We've still
No.
got it.
yeah,
I tell you
Still
what,
yeah.
walking through my city, I think I'd rather take my chances with the saber-toothed tiger. I don't know. But I mean, Dorinda, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lance.
Thank you
Absolutely
for having me.
fascinating.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, pleasure is all ours. And thank you guys for joining us. Make sure you leave your comments below. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. And make sure you check out our website for further news and information. And make sure you join us next week. Until next time, goodbye and take care.